Think about the last time someone said, "I'm fine," but your brain knew they weren't, and the reason begins 300,000 years ago. You almost never think about your eyebrows. Yet if they disappeared tomorrow, people would notice before they recognized your face. Two thin strips of hair have helped humans survive, communicate, and build societies for tens of thousands of years. Long before we invented language, eyebrows were already speaking. Every raised brow signaled surprise. Every lowered brow warned of danger. Every subtle movement carried information that could mean the difference between trust and suspicion. Why would evolution preserve something so expressive? The answer begins millions of years before the first cities, before farming, before humans even looked like humans. Our story starts in Africa. Around 7 million years ago, the ancestors of humans and chimpanzees began following separate evolutionary paths. Those early hominins still had heavy brow ridges, thick bones above their eyes that gave the face a powerful, almost permanent expression. Species such as Homo erectus and later the Neanderthals carried these pronounced ridges for hundreds of thousands of years. Scientists have debated their purpose for decades. Some believed they strengthened the skull during chewing. Others suggested they reinforced the face against physical impacts. But modern research points toward another possibility. Those heavy ridges may have functioned as visual signals, just as antlers advertise strength in deer. Large brow ridges could have projected dominance, maturity, or social status. Then something remarkable happened. Around 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, the faces of Homo sapiens began changing. Our foreheads became taller. Our faces grew flatter. The massive brow ridge gradually shrank. At first glance, this seems like a minor cosmetic shift. In reality, it transformed human communication forever. Anthropologist Paul O'Higgins and colleagues have argued that reducing the brow ridge allowed the forehead and eyebrows to move more freely. Instead of wearing one permanent expression, humans gained a flexible emotional display. Suddenly, tiny muscles could send dozens of different social signals. A slight lift, a quick furrow, a skeptical tilt. Each movement became a silent sentence. Imagine meeting a stranger 100,000 years ago. Neither of you shares a spoken language. You don't know each other's intentions. One wrong assumption could end in violence. But then the stranger raises their eyebrows for a fraction of a second. The movement is brief, almost invisible, yet your brain instantly interprets it as openness rather than aggression. That tiny gesture may have prevented countless conflicts throughout human history. Today, psychologists call one version of this movement the eyebrow flash. It lasts only a fraction of a second. People across many cultures use it as an unconscious greeting. You probably perform it without ever realizing it. Walk into a room, see someone you know. Your eyebrows lift slightly before you even smile. Researchers have found that this signal often appears before conscious thought catches up. Your face announces recognition before your mind finishes processing it. How many conversations begin with a movement so small that neither person notices it? The answer lies inside your brain. Humans possess a remarkable network dedicated to reading faces. One important region, the fusiform face area, helps recognize familiar faces with incredible speed. Nearby brain systems rapidly evaluate emotional expressions, directing your attention towards subtle movements around the eyes and eyebrows. This processing happens astonishingly fast. Within fractions of a second, your brain begins estimating whether someone seems friendly, fearful, confident, uncertain, or angry. Most of that judgment depends on movements around the upper face. Remove the eyebrows, and accuracy drops dramatically. Psychological experiments have demonstrated this repeatedly. Participants shown familiar faces without eyebrows often struggle to identify people they know. When the eyebrows are restored, recognition improves almost immediately. It turns out your eyebrows are among the most recognizable parts of your face. That may sound surprising. Most people assume eyes define identity. In reality, the brain treats eyebrows as powerful landmarks. They frame the eyes. They emphasize emotion. They create patterns unique to every individual. No two eyebrow shapes are exactly alike. Thickness, curve, spacing, length, every combination becomes part of your visual signature. This explains why changing your eyebrows can completely alter your appearance. A different shape can make someone seem older or younger, more confident, more approachable, even more trustworthy. Modern cosmetic industries worth billions of dollars exist partly because our brains instinctively pay attention to eyebrows. We notice them before we realize we're looking, and this raises an even deeper question. If eyebrows became one of humanity's greatest social tools, could they have quietly influenced the evolution of cooperation itself? To understand why eyebrows became so important, we have to leave anatomy behind and enter the world of cooperation. Humans are not the fastest animals. We are not the strongest. We do not have the sharpest teeth or claws. Our greatest evolutionary advantage has always been our ability to work together. But cooperation depends on one fragile ingredient: trust. Imagine a small band of hunter-gatherers 60,000 years ago. Food is scarce. A neighboring group approaches the camp. Are they traitors or enemies? There is no written language, no shared government, no guarantees. Every encounter begins with uncertainty. In those first few seconds, people search for clues: hands, posture, eyes, and especially the eyebrows. A relaxed brow can soften an entire face. A lowered brow can instantly suggest anger or suspicion. Before a single word is spoken, the brain is already predicting what might happen next. This ability became one of humanity's hidden survival tools. Modern neuroscientists sometimes describe the brain as a prediction machine. Rather than simply reacting to the world, it constantly makes educated guesses about what will happen next. Facial expressions provide some of the fastest information available. The muscles around the eyebrows are particularly effective because they move independently and create highly visible changes. Raise both eyebrows. The face appears curious. Pull them together. The face appears determined. Raise only one. Now the expression suggests doubt or skepticism. The same face becomes a completely different message. Remarkably, these signals require no translation. Even infants begin responding to facial expressions within the first months of life. Long before they understand words, babies watch faces. They study movement. They imitate expressions. Parents naturally exaggerate eyebrow movements while speaking to infants. Without realizing it, adults are giving children one of their earliest lessons in communication. Developmental psychologists have found that babies pay special attention to the eye region. An encouraging expression invites exploration. A fearful expression can instantly stop a child from approaching danger. This phenomenon is known as social referencing. Children often decide how to react by reading another person's face first. Imagine a toddler discovering a strange object. The child looks at the object, then looks back at a parent. If the parent's eyebrows rise with delight, curiosity usually wins. If the eyebrows tighten in alarm, the child often hesitates. No explanation is needed. A silent expression becomes a life lesson. These tiny exchanges happen thousands of times during childhood. Over years, they shape behavior, confidence, and social understanding. Perhaps the most fascinating part is how little conscious effort they require. You rarely decide to move your eyebrows. Your nervous system simply does it. Micro-expressions, brief facial movements lasting only fractions of a second, often reveal emotions before people consciously control them. Psychologist Paul Ekman spent decades studying these subtle expressions across cultures. His research suggested that several basic emotional expressions are recognized around the world, regardless of language. While cultural rules influence how openly emotions are displayed, many underlying facial movements remain remarkably consistent. Eyebrows play a central role in nearly all of them: fear, surprise, sadness, anger, confusion, interest. Each emotion changes the muscles above the eyes in distinct ways. Actors spend years learning to reproduce these subtle movements convincingly. Animators study them frame by frame. Even advanced computer-generated characters often appear unsettling when eyebrow movements are slightly wrong. This effect is part of what researchers call the uncanny valley. A face may look almost human, but if its expressions lack natural timing or coordination, something feels deeply unsettling. Your brain immediately notices. Without realizing it, you become uncomfortable. Eyebrows help prevent that feeling. They make faces appear alive, responsive, authentic. That sensitivity explains why humans invest extraordinary effort into changing them. Ancient Egyptians darkened their eyebrows using powdered minerals. Roman writers described beauty practices involving eyebrow grooming. Across Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, eyebrow styles have changed dramatically through different historical periods. Some cultures favored thick brows. Others preferred thin, carefully shaped lines. Fashion changed. The biology never did. Every generation understood, consciously or not, that eyebrows attract attention. Today, billions of dollars are spent every year on cosmetics, shaping tools, tattooing, tinting, and restoration procedures. The products may be modern. The instinct is ancient. We don't enhance eyebrows because culture invented the idea. Culture built upon an evolutionary feature our brains were already wired to notice. And eyebrows do more than influence beauty. They influence judgment. Psychologists have repeatedly shown that people form first impressions with astonishing speed. Within moments of seeing a new face, observers begin estimating traits such as confidence, friendliness, competence, and trustworthiness. Many of those judgments are influenced by the shape and movement of the eyebrows. Although these impressions are not always accurate, they can affect hiring decisions, political preferences, courtroom perceptions, and everyday social interactions. A subtle arch, a heavy brow, a relaxed expression. Tiny details can produce surprisingly large effects. Think about that for a moment. How many important decisions throughout history were quietly influenced by a pair of eyebrows? Perhaps far more than anyone realizes. But there is one final mystery. If eyebrows became such powerful tools for communication, Why are humans almost alone in having such expressive ones? The answer lies in what makes our species different from every other human that has ever lived. The answer begins with another human species. Imagine standing face to face with a Neanderthal. They were intelligent. They made tools. They cared for injured members of their groups. They survived brutal ice age climates for hundreds of thousands of years. But their faces looked very different from ours. Above their eyes sat a massive, continuous brow ridge. Unlike modern humans, their eyebrows had less room to move independently. For decades, scientists assumed those heavy ridges existed only to strengthen the skull. Then researchers began asking a different question. What if the real advantage wasn't having a larger brow ridge, but losing it? In 2018, a team led by anthropologist Paul O'Higgins used advanced computer modeling to study fossil skulls. Their conclusion was striking. Modern human skulls no longer required such massive brow ridges for structural support. Instead, flatter faces may have allowed much greater flexibility in facial expression. That flexibility may have changed everything. A movable eyebrow can signal uncertainty, curiosity, empathy, submission, reassurance. Those signals make cooperation easier, and cooperation became the defining feature of Homo sapiens. As human communities grew larger, social life became increasingly complex. People traded with strangers, shared food, raised children together, formed alliances, resolved conflicts, remembered reputations. None of these tasks depended solely on intelligence. They depended on communication. Language helped enormously, but language is only part of the story. Even today, researchers estimate that a significant portion of emotional meaning in conversation comes from nonverbal communication. Facial expressions, posture, tone of voice, and eye contact constantly reinforce or contradict the words we speak. Eyebrows are among the most expressive tools in that entire system. Think about the last time someone said, "I'm fine." Did you believe them? Probably not. Your brain wasn't listening only to the words. It was watching the face. Were the eyebrows tense? Did they rise briefly in sadness? Did they tighten with frustration? Long before your conscious mind reached a conclusion, your brain had already begun interpreting those signals. This remarkable ability depends on millions of years of evolution. Natural selection rewarded individuals who could accurately read the intentions of others. Misreading an enemy as a friend could be fatal. Misreading a friend as an enemy could destroy valuable alliances. Generation after generation, human brains became experts at reading tiny facial movements. Today, most of that process happens automatically. You don't calculate eyebrow angles, you simply understand them. Technology has accidentally demonstrated just how important they are. When engineers first developed humanoid robots, many looked strangely unsettling. The proportions were correct. The voices sounded realistic. The eyes blinked naturally, yet something still felt wrong. Often, the missing ingredient was believable facial movement. Even slight delays or unnatural eyebrow motion made otherwise realistic faces appear lifeless. Animators at major film studios discovered the same lesson decades ago. A perfectly modeled face without convincing eyebrow animation struggles to express believable emotion. A single raised eyebrow can transform confusion into curiosity, confidence into arrogance, concern into compassion. Tiny movements create enormous emotional differences. This isn't limited to face-to-face conversations. Think about modern communication. Video calls, movies, television, social media, even emojis. One of the simplest ways to change the meaning of a digital face is by changing the eyebrows. A small adjustment instantly creates a completely different emotion. Our ancient brains still rely on the same visual language, even through modern technology. And yet, despite everything we've learned, eyebrows continue to reveal things we never intended to share. Interviewers watch them. Poker players hide them beneath sunglasses and hats. Police investigators study them during questioning. Psychologists analyze them in laboratories. Artificial intelligence systems are now being trained to recognize facial expressions by tracking landmarks around the eyes and eyebrows. Ironically, machines are learning to read one of humanity's oldest forms of communication. The future may depend on understanding expressions that evolved long before civilization itself. Perhaps the greatest irony is this: most of us spend our lives believing we communicate primarily with words, but words often arrive second. Your eyebrows begin speaking before your mouth ever opens. They announce surprise before you gasp, concern before you ask a question, recognition before you say hello, compassion before you offer comfort. Across every culture on Earth, across thousands of generations, these silent signals have helped humans cooperate, avoid conflict, build friendships, and create civilizations, all because evolution reshaped a small strip of bone above our eyes and gave a few tiny muscles room to move. The next time you look in the mirror, don't just see two strips of hair. See one of evolution's greatest communication technologies, a feature so ordinary that we almost never notice it, yet so powerful that it quietly helped transform clever primates into the most socially connected species our planet has ever known. Your eyebrows were never just decoration. They are a living record of millions of years of evolution, written across your